cosine, and then work it from there. But if you could try to avoid that, it would be, sometimes it's a lot easier to try to just work with the Pythagorean identities. Okay, let's say we have tangent squared u minus sine squared u, and we want that to equal to tangent squared u sine squared u. So here we have, you got a minus sign in between here. So you want to try to simplify that to where it's all just multiplication and division. Well, sometimes it helps to look at the second to the last step in terms of sine and cosine. So tangent, we know that's sine squared u over cosine squared u, and then we have that times sine squared u. So, and that's over 1. So if we can get to that point, then maybe we can, we want to try to see if we can get to there. So let's take a look at this left side, and it doesn't look like we can really apply any kind of Pythagorean identity here. So we'll just go ahead and write this in terms of sine and cosine. So here's sine squared u over cosine squared u minus sine squared u, and we'll put that over 1. So that means we need to get a common denominator. So we're going to multiply that times cosine squared u over cosine squared u, and then we can combine them. So here we have one common denominator of cosine squared u. And we've got sine squared u minus sine squared u cosine squared u. Now it helps, you see how we've got a common factor here? Now if we factored out the sine squared, what do we get? 1 minus cosine. Well, in that case, see how we went from subtraction here to multiplication? Well, that means somewhere along the line something has to get factored. And that's what we've got here. So we're going to factor out the sine squared u, and that leaves us with 1 minus cosine squared u in parentheses over cosine squared u. And now you see how we have sine squared over cosine and sine squared? So that means we got to change that 1 minus cosine squared. Notice there's no cosine in the numerator, but there is one in the denominator. So, and that's just cosine squared. So we can change this 1 minus cosine squared to sine squared. And that's what we're going to do. Sine squared u times, and this will be sine times sine squared u again, and that's all over cosine. Well, if we put the cosine on just the left side, cosine squared u, then you see we're down to that second to the last step. And so now we change sine over cosine to tangent squared u sine squared u, and we get it equal to the right hand side. And that's what we want. Okay. Now, this next step, and I'm going to give myself plenty of room here. We have a 1 plus tangent x over 1 minus tangent x. And that equals to cosine x plus sine x over cosine x minus sine x. Well, what we can do here is we can go ahead and change tangent in terms of sine and cosine. And so that's what we're going to do. We've got 1 plus tangent is going to be sine x over cosine x. And then 1 minus sine x over cosine x. So the 1, we need a common denominator to combine. So we put cosine x over cosine x for that one, and cosine x over cosine x for the denominator as well. So what we have here is cosine x plus sine x over just cosine x. And all of that is over cosine x minus sine x. Because see, here's a cosine x times 1, so that'll be cosine minus sine. And that's all over one common denominator, cosine. Okay? Well, you see here that we have a cosine plus sine, we've got a cosine minus sine, so if we can just get rid of the cosines in each one of the denominators, we can be done. Well, here we have that a divided by b, right, is equal to a times the reciprocal of b. So all we're going to do is we're going to take the denominator and multiply that. We're going to take the numerator and multiply the reciprocal of the denominator. So we've got cosine x plus sine x over cosine x times. And now we're taking the denominator. What was cosine in the denominator is now cosine in the numerator. And what was cosine x minus sine x in the numerator is now cosine x minus sine x in the denominator. Okay, well, the cosine x's can cancel. And so we have cosine x plus sine x over cosine x minus sine x, and that equals to our right hand side. And that's what we wanted. Okay, on this next one, this one's quite a bit different than the others that we've seen.